Christine. Welcome to Book Talk. Today we are discussing Chain of Iron. Chain of Iron comes after Chain of Gold, which comes after the Infernal Devices trilogy. If you've read them and you haven't picked up Chain of Iron yet and you don't really remember what happened, I just made a whole recap of TID and Chain of Gold in 12 minutes. Worked real hard on it if you haven't seen it yet. I'll link that in the description below. I also have a book talk for Chain of Gold if you want to go into detail what happened there before we go into what happened here. I finished Chain of Iron yesterday and I just have so many feelings. I'm about to explode. I already did. John came over and was like, hey, you're being a little loud with your random outbursts. And I was like, I can't help it right now, okay? I can't help it. So being that Chain of Iron is the second book in the series, there's not much I can say without spoiling it. You need to start with Chain of Gold. Lucy is on the cover. That's really all I've got for non-spoiler. If you don't know, I have book talks for every single Shadowhunter book that Cassie has put out. If you want to go catch up on those, they're available. There's a link in the description to that playlist. Now, though, we're going to talk about Chain of Iron. So if you haven't read it yet, you're going to want to leave because this is going to be full of spoilers and no one wants to be spoiled. It's not fun. I have a lot of feelings, so they're just going to explode right out of me. There's going to be no order to how things are said. So don't think that like you're halfway through and you can stay until I get to that point because I can't go in order right now. I'm jumping straight to the end and there's no stopping me. So please leave if you haven't read it. Okay? Thank you. Leave. Goodbye if you haven't read Chain of Iron. Goodbye. Cassandra Clare, you're torturing me with this book. You're torturing me here. There are so many characters that I want to sit down and give a firm lecture at the end of this book. The first one being, I don't even know the first one being James, Matthew, Cordelia, Will, Magnus, Lucy. I knew Cassie was going to end the book this way. I knew it. But still, I hoped that at least Cordelia and James would communicate before the end. And I'm so mad at everybody in this book. So mad. Matthew, you can't just take her to Paris. Cordelia, he said he has something really important to say. You didn't even say to eavesdrop on him and Grace's full conversation. Don't even get me started on the bracelet. I was going insane. There's so much other stuff happening, but all my brain could do was concentrate on the bracelet. Get it off. Get it off. When's it gonna come off? We have this amazing wedding. Oh, it's so great. And Grace is there and she's like, oh, I'm gonna set him free. I'm like, are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Waiting on pins and needles. But we never get out of the fucking woods. I was so mad last night as I finished this. I was just yelling the whole last chapter. I was yelling. I can't believe James left this conversation with Cordelia. Like, they make out, the bracelet breaks. Finally, hallelujah, hallelujah. Like, all the choruses come and sing, and I'm so fucking happy. Finally! We're there. We did it. And it's after James goes with fake Magnus into Edom and confronts Belial. Belial can, like, catch a bullet in the air and throw it back at him, and he gets hurt. Cordelia brings him back by being like, you can't have him, he's mine. And while she's cleaning his wound back in their house, their beautiful house, when she first took a tour of the house with him, what a beautiful, heartwarming scene, and how disappointing it was when nothing happened on their wedding. Oh my God. I just thought they were gonna have to like do the trope where they have to consummate the marriage, like have to pretend to consummate the marriage and spend the night in the same room together, but like nothing. The angst, the miscommunications, the fucking bracelet. He goes, did you really mean what you said, that I'm yours? She was like, well, yeah. And then they start making out and it's all real, and then the bracelet breaks and James passes out. They finally get a chance to talk at the last chapter of the book. James is ready to re-propose the proper fucking way. He gave her this necklace of the globe and there's something in it, something proposal-y. And he's like, I'll show her what the necklace truly is. It's very exciting. He ends their conversation with the statement, no, I'll never feel for you how I felt about Grace, which is like the most misleading statement he could ever say. Why would he ever leave her on that note? There's a knock at the door and he doesn't say, no, I don't mean I don't love you. I mean, like, I don't like Grace. And I'm gonna explain further. Would you just spit out, fucking I love you before you go to the door? He goes, that's probably my dad. And he goes down there, it's not his dad. Why wouldn't he holler up there? I'd be like, hey, Cordelia thinks I don't love her. If Grace is at the door, I'm gonna be like, hey, Cordelia, it's Grace. Can you come down here and chaperone us, please? Nothing is happening. Would that have been so hard, James? Would it have been so hard? Look what you've done. I would have just told her, like, on the battlefield with Belial in Jesse Blackthorne's body and been like, hey, just so you know, I love you. This is a real marriage for me. I can't deal with this. When they're getting on that train, and Will stops him, and he doesn't continue to run on the train and just be like, hey, BT Dubs, Cordelia, I love you. Please don't do anything with Matthew. Thanks, bye. Would have taken a second. Run in, run out. He wouldn't have hurt her feelings. She would have been so excited. We open up in a prologue that's very reminiscent of City of Ashes, where we're seeing from Belial's POV as he possesses a human body. We got a very Harry Book 5 vibe happening between Belial and James. He's having visions every time Belial murders these Shadowhunters. Belial says at the end that he wasn't sending these visions. He wasn't giving him this pathway into his thoughts and feelings. We start to realize that perhaps it was Jesse Blackthorne all along. Because it's Jesse Blackthorne's body, maybe he's reaching out to the only person that he can. Maybe because Jesse sacrificed his last breath to bring James back to life. Maybe James now has this weird connection to Jesse, and who knows how far that connection stretches, but it obviously was allowing him to witness what was happening in Jesse's body when Belial was possessing it, which is very interesting because now Jesse is alive. We learn the whole origin story of Jesse Blackthorne. Instead of having the Silent Brothers come when Jesse was a baby to give him all these different protections against demonic possession, Tatiana hires a warlock to do it. And this warlock is under Belial's thumb, and Belial has him put this anchor of his own demonic essence into Jesse as a child, so it gets all wrapped up in Jesse's soul. That's why Jesse died, because Tatiana trusted the wrong people. Belial hasn't even given a shit about what Tatiana wants, so he's just using her over and over again so that he eventually could use Jesse Blackthorne's body if he needed it, which he did, because James refused his body a million times. At the end of Chain of Gold, he's like, James, let me possess you, or else all the Shadowhunters that have been poisoned with this plague are going to die. But if you let me possess you, I'll heal them all. This time, he raises his sea monster, Prince of Hell brother to hold the entire Institute hostage. And he's like, James, let me possess you, or else everyone at the Institute dies. But if you let me possess you, I'll tell Leviathan to go home and it'll all be fine. It's gonna be great. Just let me possess you. Do it. And again, James is just like, no. Didn't fall for it last time. Not gonna fall for it this time either. What else did we learn in the beginning of this book? Cordelia is taken by Matthew to the Hell's Ruel to meet Anna and Lucy for her bachelorette party, and we learn that the Hell Ruel's patron is Lilith. And right then and there, I was like, why are we seeing Lilith? There's like an emphasis placed on Lilith for a second, and I know it's not just cause we see her later on in City of Fallen Angels. I almost want to reread City of Fallen Angels now so I can get a sense of Lilith then, so I can like better connect it to now. Right off the bat in Hell's Ruel, we meet this random fairy, and this fairy talks to Cordelia about Cortana. Oh my god, did you know that Waylon the Smith lives under this hill behind this goat, blah 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 blah? And Cordelia's all, Waylon the Smith is still alive? The fae's like, yeah, I can take you there if you want. Fae are always saying annoying things to lure you into annoying traps, so I just thought nothing of it. I was just like, oh my god. I don't know if you remember when I did my Chain of Gold trailer reaction video. I got all excited connecting these other random threads and was pondering the idea that Cortana was a Fae-made weapon. And when a Fae was like, Waylon the Smith is still alive and he's under a hill, I was like, that sounds like a Fae place to live. And that sounds like a Fae weapon to me. I was dancing around the house, you guys. One of my theories is real. One of my theories is real. And so, when that happened, I was completely like excited and sidetracked. I wasn't thinking anything evil. I was just like, oh shit, we're doing it. We're gonna learn more about Cortana, and Waylon the Smith is a Fae, la la. And you know, Waylon the Smith might still be some sort of Fae, like Lilith fake Waylon the Smith said. Like, I'm not a Fae, some people will call me a god, I'm so old, la la la. Like, that wasn't the real Waylon the Smith. But, I mean, this alludes to the idea that he might still be alive. We might actually have to find him to remove the paladin fealty sworn to Lilith. I'm not exactly sure how that magic works, but like, if you swear fealty to someone else, does that erase the fealty to the first person? I feel like it does. In Game of Thrones, if you take the knee, you take the knee, and you're no longer the knee to the other person that you were the knee of. Just makes sense. Now that we've opened up the door of Waylon the Smith, I feel like there's more there. I was a smidgen suspicious when he was like, swear fealty to me, because, I mean, it just came out of left field. I don't know, maybe this is like a normal thing for Waylon the Smith, though. I don't know. And then he was going on and on about the precious swords of past paladins, and I wrote them all down, and I got into that. Ooh, cool. I just let it roll off my back. 'Cause you know what? I was too concerned about the fucking bracelet. The entire book, it was like a bamboo shoved under my nail. I couldn't stop wanting trying to murder it. Couldn't stop thinking about it. All I did was like slam the book closed and be like, the bracelet! You're still wearing the bracelet, John! You're still wearing the bracelet! It kind of put a little bit of a damper on the rest of the book for me because I hated the bracelet so much. Like, my hatred for Grace is so dense and heavy. I want to not blame her, but she could have taken it off. If she truly looked at James as her only friend, she could have taken it off and just lied. Her mom's not there to see. She's not doing what she needs to anyway. So what's the harm in taking it off of James? I'm fine. Ugh, I love the scenes with Will and Tessa in this book. And then when Will and Tessa had to go to Paris with the mortal sword to like smooth over some downworlder politics, I was like, how can you leave your kids right now? How can you trust these children here? When Lilith faked being mad, when I found out that Lilith was mad, I was so mad. 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 I didn't catch Magnus's magic being a different color. I was just so excited to fucking see him because I was like, we're saved! Magnus is here! He's gonna set everything right. He's gonna see the bracelet. He's gonna help Matthew. He's gonna be Magnus. We need him. Like, how dare you be away for so long, Magnus? We needed you here. I thought you were staying to keep an eye on things and then you just left. And then everything went to shit. What tipped me off a little bit about Magnus was when we were in Edom. And he said this weird thing. He was like, do you not fear Lilith's wrath? And I was like, weird thing for Magnus to say. And then I believe Belial laughs. And Magnus then goes, you already have one. It only takes 3. And I'm here like putting that together with James. Like, oh, does that mean 3 wounds is how you murder Belial? How would Magnus know that? It's just like, why would that be something Magnus would say? It just doesn't seem in character for him. He's more of like a snarky, kind person than a weird, threatening. It was weird. And then the fact that Magnus gets ejected was weird. And then he did nothing really there to protect James was weird. It was weird. But I just took it because I was like, the bracelet. The bracelet's gonna come off. The bracelet! Make the bracelet break! That's all it was, the whole thing. It was clouding my brain just like it was clouding James. I couldn't think straight because I was so mad at it all the time. And then James is so mad when he sees Grace again. He makes all these mistakes with Cordelia. Why did he say thank God when she was like, I'm gonna break up with Charles to be with you? Why? Why? Why, James? This book made me fall in love with James Herondale, but also like want to throttle him. I just want to like slap him across the face 50 times. I love the scene where Will uses the mortal sword to try Thomas and help prove that he didn't murder Lillian Highsmith. I love Alistair watching Will sound silly and ridiculous in a serious situation, and Thomas is like, don't worry, my uncle's like that, you'll get used to it. The more serious the situation, the weirder he gets. We have to get back to this Lilith thing. We were back in the beginning. The fairy showed up. I got excited about my theory being possibly right. Still not right at all. In the beginning, we think that something's wrong with Cortana because it's shocking Cordelia when she uses it, and that's why she goes to Waylon the Smith. All of that is a setup. All of it's a big con. When Lillian Highsmith showed up at that park with Belial and Jesse Blackthorne's body at the end, I fell into a black hole. The second she starts switching, and they're like, no, 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 oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, 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 no. That scene had me on the fucking edge of a cliff. I was so scared the entire time. I felt just like the dread was overwhelming. And I thought that that was enough. You know, I thought like maybe since Cassie just put us through a whole ordeal where we thought Cordelia was living her dreams as a paladin for Waylon the Smith, and then it turns around and it was fucking Lilith, and now she's Lilith's paladin, and she almost killed Lucy, and she almost killed Jesse Blackthorne, and everything almost went to complete shit. Maybe Cordelia and James could realize they both love each other. But no, we couldn't have it, and we also now have Cordelia can't use a weapon because she's afraid she's gonna summon Lilith. Lilith's gonna demand that she does some random shit like kill her best friend. I was crying during that scene. And then when Anna and Ariadne, oh my gosh, Ariadne's actual name is Kamala. Ariadne and Anna. Do I go down this road right now? I am so sad for Ariadne and Anna. Just be together. You guys are wonderful. We have to end the book with them like not working it out. Duh! I thought at least we were gonna have Thomas and Alistair because I loved their scene when they were stuck in the sanctuary together overnight. Thomas has been going on patrols without a buddy, and then he's caught with Lillian Highsmith's body because he finds her right as she's dying. The stupid Inquisitor Bridgestock is like, you were the killer. There's no one to prove that you didn't kill her. Alistair strides in and he was like, I saw the whole thing. He did not kill her. I've been following him. And then Thomas is like, you were the one that was following me? And everyone else around them is like, you knew somebody was following you, Thomas. That scene warmed my heart when they were sitting together and Thomas was like, I was just wondering if you were like me. I've tried to hate you and I can't. Alistair is like, I'm nothing like you. You're the most kind-hearted person I know. Then they make out and they spend the whole night together and it's so sweet. And then Alistair has to go and just ruin it again at the end. It's so frustrating because Thomas doesn't say that, like, my friends love me and if I want to be with you, they will respect that. Like, they're gonna come around. They're gonna come around. I'm just so mad that all the romances, every romance is not good. How could you do this? Every romance is broken at the end of this book. I just wanted, except for Will and Tessa, of course, but like we already sorted them. I just want one happy teenage couple to be happy. Grace and Christopher Lightwood have their meet cute. They bond over science. Who knew Grace enjoys a science lesson? I want more Christopher Lightwood. We get like drips of him everywhere and he's really cute and nice and fun. But I want him to be with them more often for their hangs. I feel like he's always in his laboratory. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate all his inventions and his quirky, sciencey nature. He was examining the Pithos, which is the Adamas stele that kind of looks like a box and it doesn't actually draw runes. You trace it over a ruin you already have and it copy pastes it onto another person. The purpose of it was that Jesse didn't have any runes and Belial wanted to make Jesse into a warrior, so he wanted to give him all these runes to give him all these different strengths, so when then Belial took his body, he'd be like, oh, strong. Can we just talk about Tatiana for a second? She was punished for practicing necromantic magic by being sent to the Iron Citadel. I was under the assumption she was sent to be an Iron Sister, but then she said she wasn't, so I'm under the assumption she's sent there to live in some sort of jail. But apparently, Tatiana's just wandering about the Iron Citadel doing whatever the fuck she wants. Stealing Adamas, going on long walks. At the end, she just goes on a long walk, and Belial comes and takes her away. She steals another chunk of Adamas, and then it's just bye, out of there. There's not even wards to prevent Belial from coming in. Where's the security? Who knows what happened to Grace? James just left her in the drawing room. He was like, Effie, hey, there's a dangerous criminal in there, so call the Clave, and she'll explain everything. And Effie's just like, the criminal's gonna explain everything? And James is like, I gotta go! He's off to find Cordelia, who ran off to Matthew's flat, and Matthew at his flat was like, hey Cordelia, guess what? I love you, and I'm going to Paris, so you can either stay here or you can come to Paris with me. And she's like, I guess I'll go to Paris! And then they're going to Paris, and James is running after them. Matthew writes a letter, and he's like, hey, James, I didn't want to have to tell you this. I thought you'd just fall in love with Cordelia, but I guess you're still in love with Grace. And I love Cordelia. I'm going to take her to Paris because she's sad about her dad. Oh my God. Cordelia's dad died. Elias died. The last we see is him coming to see James and ask for 5,000 pounds and badmouth James when he said he couldn't give him 5,000 pounds. And then he's murdered outside of a pub. I don't know how I've gone so long without asking this question. And maybe it's been explained and I've just forgotten because I've been reading Shadowhunter books since I was 18 and now I'm 30. Oh my God. But how do Shadowhunters make money? How does that happen? Matthew's family is very wealthy, but think of their money. Where is it from? Like, they fight demons? Like, who pays them? Is there a Shadowhunter bank? How did they have money on them? Tessa and Will, they're able to buy James his own house. Matthew's able to get his own flat. And I'm just curious on how that works. Next time I talk to Cassie, I'm gonna have to ask her for the explanation because I'm sure she has one, but I don't know it, and it was bothering me the whole time. I was like, how do they make money if they don't have jobs in the money world? Where does it come from? Where to go? Where to come from? Okay, Cordelia's running away from James, and she's in the snow. She doesn't have a jacket. She's freezing. She says she doesn't have anything, and she gets in a cab, goes to Matthew's flat, and I'm just like, how did she pay for the cab? Did she have her phone on her and just use Apple Pay? Did she have a credit card? She just like swiped in 1903. How did she pay him? Did she, maybe she wrote him an I don't know, an IOU? How did this work? Maybe she always keeps money in her bra. Maybe she paid with like an earring. I don't know. Hypatia and Magnus are dating in this. And oh my God, wait a minute. When Anna and Ariadne take Lucy to Hypatia's shop, she's like waiting for Magnus because he's there for just the night. But that Magnus wasn't Magnus, it was Lilith. Is Hypatia having an affair with Lilith? Does she know? What happened there? She must have known, unless Magnus portaled in. I don't know. Damn it. At the Hell's Ruel in the beginning, Lucy dances with a vampire. Now I'm wondering, do her powers extend to the living dead? Do you think she could command a vampire? Because they are technically dead. Lucy commands a dead person back to life in this book. And Malcolm, oh my God, there's just so much to talk about. I didn't even get to Malcolm yet. Fucking Malcolm! Fucking Grace! Ah! Malcolm panics when he sees what she's done, like she's done something completely evil, but really she just used her power. And we're left not knowing if Lucy made it through that experience. Like she brought him back to life. She must have, because of the family tree. Like, I know the family tree might not be accurate, but like it's my holy grail. And right now, until I'm proven wrong, I'm just going with it. Lucy Arundel and Jesse Blackthorne, they must live to marry. And that's why I'm not very worried about Lucy dying from this experience. But like, why didn't Lucy die? And did someone else die for him to live? Was there a natural balance where like someone just dropped dead within the vicinity because she brought Jesse Black to life? Where did that life come from? Because we can only bring someone back to life when other things are killed. So Malcolm doesn't know what happened to Annabelle. And oh my God! When I saw that car crash coming, I couldn't even, as if I didn't have enough inspiration to hate Grace. Spoilers if you haven't finished TDA yet. I'm going to put the book here that I'm spoiling, and then when that disappears, you can unmute. Grace is the reason Malcolm finds out that Annabelle was buried alive. Grace and Lucy. I mean, Lucy's also to blame, because Lucy's like, you know what? I could raise Annabelle's ghost and ask her what happened to her. So not only is Malcolm gonna have to deal with the fact that his true love, who he thought was at the Iron Citadel, is dead, not actually there, but he's gonna have to learn through Lucy raising her ghost that she was buried alive. It's gonna completely corrupt Malcolm for the rest of his life. Malcolm literally says to Lucy, we can't bring people back from the dead, the cost is too high. It's this information that drives him mad and turns him into a lunatic. Grace is like, the truth is better. It's always better to know the truth. The truth is better. And even Malcolm, when Lucy's like, I would never have told you that way. I'm so sorry Grace did that. It was so insensitive. Malcolm's just like, no. It was better to know the truth. Better to know the truth. It's better to just know. Was it though? Was it worth it? Was it worth it? So let me put it down and reverse it. I think the answer is no. Basically, everything that happens in TDA is Grace's fault. I mean, okay, it's the Blackthorns' fault first, but like, if Grace hadn't opened up her insensitive giant mouth, they wouldn't have been in this pickle, we wouldn't have lost people, a lot of shit wouldn't have been terrible. Super Grace! We knew necromancy was gonna be a bad idea, and it almost seems like Lucy knows it too, but she still goes along with it. Malcolm, it doesn't need to fulfill his side of the bargain. She doesn't have to fulfill her Annabelle thing, because she already brought Jesse back to life. I guess Malcolm is gonna fucking help Lucy not die from the necromancy that she performed. I don't know. So in Chain of Iron, we're basically jumping right into the Cordelia James wedding. Matthew says something the night before that's kind of like, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. I think the fairy, that's actually Lilith, also says that at the Hell's Ruel, but there's no stopping them now. I'm so glad James is like, you should have said that earlier if you wanted to stop my wedding. We're doing this or else Cordelia's gonna be ruined, and I'm not backing down. And Cordelia's like, well, I love James. So we jump into their wedding. It's absolutely beautiful. But right before it, Grace shows up with supposedly the intention of setting James free. She tells him she has to talk to him. We have to meet in this other room before you get married. It's very important. Meet me in 10 minutes. And James is like, okay, I'll be there in 10 minutes. And James never comes. Instead, she's visited by Tatiana possessing someone with the help of Belial, who threatens to take her brother away. And then Grace just abandons this. She wanted to set him free. She really did. But like, he didn't show up, so there was nothing she could do. She really felt conflicted and wanted to set him free. That's why she waited till 5 minutes before his fucking wedding to show up and try to get the bracelet off. And like, did she really? Did Grace really give it the old college try? She could have just snapped it off. She could have had a seraph blade and went, she could have reached over, grabbed his wrist, and taken it. She could have been like, give me your wrist, because she has power over. She could have done anything. But like, the only way was to have a talk right before the wedding, like right before you walk down the aisle. I couldn't come over earlier because I was too busy with your sister trying to raise Jesse from the dead. You wanted to set him free, my ass. And then James, the whole time being like, oh, I should take off the bracelet. I should, like he says in the first chapter, like, I should take this off. It's only fair to Cordelia. But then he forgets to take it off because it's part of the enchantment that he can't take it off. And I just wanted to kill everything. I just want to... Cordelia's father shows up just in time for the wedding. Cordelia Sejanus, I think that's how you pronounce it, is Lucy. She walks her down the aisle. And James and Cordelia get married. But they never do the second ruin to seal the marriage. So they're technically not married, I don't think. They're half married. I wonder if that is going to be a technicality in the next book. Like, when James re-proposes, if he does, maybe Cordelia will propose. Probably not. The ball's really in James' court right now. Cordelia does not know that he's in love with her. But maybe she finds out, and then maybe she proposes. I don't know. But once that happens, happens, they're going to get together and maybe have like beautiful sexual relations and do the second marriage rune to seal their actual real marriage when they get married. That's gonna happen. We know it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And unfortunately, we end off with Cordelia agreeing to go to Paris if Matthew agrees not to drink. And it's just like so naive of her to think that Matthew can just say, yes, I'm not gonna drink, and not drink, because Matthew's an alcoholic. He can't just agree not to drink. Matthew even is naive to think like, oh, if that's all you want, yeah. Even Cordelia's saying like, maybe a little champagne. No. Like, he doesn't know how to just do a little champagne. That's the problem now. He's an addict, Cordelia. He needs help. She's gonna quickly realize that this isn't a thing that Matthew can just give up easily. He's gonna need help. It's gonna be really, really hard. She doesn't realize the depths of her father's struggle and her mother's struggle with her father. It's gonna be a real sad, hard road for Matthew and Cordelia. She's gonna have all this trauma and baggage from her father and everything that she witnessed, not knowing that it was a side effect of his alcoholism, and it's gonna come back to her watching Matthew try to quit and not be able to, and it's gonna suck. Like, Matthew thinks she's gonna be happy in Paris, but really what's gonna happen is Matthew is gonna try not to drink, and he's gonna be miserable, or he's gonna be sick and ill, and like it's not gonna work out, and he's gonna get drunk, and she's gonna be disappointed, and everything's gonna suck there. That actually makes me a little relieved, because I don't want her to come back like in love with Matthew. I think though she does have very fond feelings for Matthew, and it's just gonna get muddled up because Matthew has this addiction that's so similar to her father. She's gonna be drawing all these parallels. Again, Matthew's like, I think it'll help her to forget about her father. She's not gonna forget about her father with you, Matthew. I'm sorry. Like, you're sweet and wonderful and funny, but also you have the same addiction, and that is the trait that has marked her father in her eyes right now. That's going to keep washing over her as she watches you, and it's gonna be sad. Maybe they'll come home early and realize that James and Lucy are gone because Lucy's gonna commit necromancy. But Lucy has already committed necromancy. Like, everything's all muddled up. I'm glad Magnus is finally here. If Magnus isn't here, everything goes to shit for everyone all the time. What book has been solved without Magnus around? Magnus. So we left off in Chain of Gold thinking that Jesse had faded away, and he is fading, but he's still there. He's just not as strong of a presence as he was before. And Lucy still hangs out with him every single night. They've really bonded. I love how he wants to read The Beautiful Cordelia, and she wants him to read it, but she wants to pick out a certain section, and it's so upsetting when he just like sees a section out. He thinks that she's mocking him, and his self-esteem is just so low, and being a ghost, and how he hasn't experienced anything, and he's stuck in this 17-year-old life and all this stuff, and it's just like so sad for a second with the two of them, but they get past it. Oh, let's talk about Philomena D'Angelo. This exchange student from Italy comes, and she's like, oh, mysterious and beautiful and worldly. They go to a party at Anna's. She walks home alone, and she's murdered. This ghost shows up and asks Lucy to make him forget because he did something bad before he died, and in exchange, he'll tell him where to find the ghost of Philomena D'Angelo, and then they can find out more about the killer. They find out that Philomena's at this warehouse. It might be a trap, but the whole crew goes all armed to the nine. It's really fun to see them all fight together because there's an Uberos demon in there. It's great. But before that happens, we find Philomena D'Angelo's ghost, and this bitch has the nerve to turn to Cordelia and go, Cordelia, you are a great heroine. Even in the realm of the dead, they speak of you. You are the bearer of the blade Cortana, which can slay anything. You have spilled the blood of a prince of hell. You could have saved me. Excuse me? Cordelia wasn't even at the party. She wasn't there at all. And then this bitch has the nerve to guilt trip Cordelia about her death? The thing is, we see this happen again with Lillian Highsmith in the park at the end with Belial. But it's not actually Lillian Highsmith, it's Lilith. Which makes me think, is this also Lilith ghost? Was this not real at all? I don't think so. We never led to believe that. So why the fork did she say that to Cordelia? If anything, Lucy or Anna, who also feel guilty, are the ones that should feel guilty because they let her walk home alone in this climate where there's a killer running around. I just don't even understand. How was Cordelia ever supposed to know that you were walking home from a party alone and were about to be hunted by Jack the Ripper, Belial? That piece of the puzzle never really fell into place. After that, though, we get a really great, fun action sequence. We have like two big action sequences with the crew. This one and the one that Lilith set up to show Cordelia how she's a paladin and how it's super cool to have paladin powers. And I thought it was super cool in the moment, but now I'm like, oh, that bitch set us up for her death. This time they're all in the warehouse. Anna has her whip And it's just, oh, I love seeing Anna with Lucy with her axe. James has his revolver, and we have this moment where the Oberst is coming at Cordelia, and she pulls out Cortana, and she's like ready to slay this bitch, but Cortana zaps her, falls. She has nothing in her hand, and James shoots the Oberst demon and it explodes. Because James is the only one that can shoot this gun because he's got these demonic Shadowland abilities, and he's got the angelic blood that can shoot the rune blessed gun. Did he get it back at the end? Yeah, he did. Oh my god, it was such a great moment. For a second, Belial had to work with us, and he allowed for James to shoot Lilith, and I was like, oh yeah! It's just a beautiful cinematic moment. We've got these two nemeses. If the enemy is your enemy's enemy, then that enemy could be a friend for a second. He's like, grandfather! And Belial can't even shoot the gun because he doesn't have that angelic blood. He tosses it to James, and James is like, pfft. Lilith explodes into a bunch of owls and is gone for now. I think that was my favorite scene in the book. Lucy commanding Jesse to expel Belial from his body, and he's like, oh, like you could just picture this scene. It's beautiful, it's intense, very cinematic, yo. I think this series would be the one that I'd actually adapt to film in some way the best. I don't know, a lot of it feels more grounded in terms of like special effects. The monsters feel so like almost Carnival Row-esque. I think it could really, really work well. And the story is just so full of angst and love triangles. There's so much human drama to ground everything, even though there's like lots of human drama and everything else, but it's less overarching demon drama and more human drama, because even Belial appears as this human. There's, you know, a lot of possession and all that stuff. That's all very doable. Our word of the day in Chain of Irons is foibles. Did anyone else see the word foibles? And take a step back like, what are foibles? I must know. I don't know the word foibles. This is when James gives Cordelia the gift for their 2-week anniversary. She's like, but I didn't give you anything. I didn't know I was supposed to. And James goes, you weren't. Sometimes I have foibles. This is one of them. Open the box. A foible is a minor weakness or eccentricity in someone's character, which I love because it's such a Will thing to have foibles. And James is like, I have foibles. I got you a present for our 2-week anniversary. Open it. I love all their talk of Constantinople, and they have to go. That's where they're gonna go for their honeymoon at the end of book 3 when they finally work this shit out. We learn a lot more about Grace in Chain of Iron. We get flashbacks from her growing up with Tatiana. The only loving relationship she had was with her brother Jesse. She doesn't really remember her life before that. She came to them when she was 7 years old. Lo and behold, Grace is trained. Jesse trained her. They both secretly trained together. Right at the start of the novel, we stumble upon the phrase, a chain of iron, and I just love how it's used when Grace is waiting to meet with James to set him free. She talks about how his love feels like iron chains to her because she doesn't love him, and she has to drag these feelings and this intensity along with her, and she can't set him or herself free without incurring Tatiana's wrath. We also learn the exact gift that Grace has. Belial gifted her the power to manipulate men. But alas, it turns out that power actually didn't work on James. And that's why Tatiana went to Belial and got this fucking bracelet that says loyalty binds me. I love everything with James and Cordelia. After the wedding, when they get to the house and he's showing her around and everything's so thoughtful and wonderful. Like, he did such a good job. And you can tell, like, all of this is imbued with his love for her that he doesn't even realize he has. And Cordelia realizes it too. She's like, it doesn't look like Grace is gonna live here. It's made for me. She's expecting them to be in the same room together. I'm expecting them to be in the same room together. And then they have separate stupid rooms. We have this little glimmer of hope that something's gonna happen when she needs help with her wedding dress. And like, they just have this charged sexual moment, but nothing actually happens. I love their chess games together. I love their little thing where whoever wins the chess game or the game that they play gets to ask a question. I thought that we were gonna carry that through a little bit more, and one of those days she would ask about his feeling for her, or he would ask about her feelings for him, and maybe that'll happen. Maybe they'll play a game of chess in book 3, and that's how it'll finally be revealed that James is in love with her. I don't know. That's how I thought that she was gonna find out, and then I thought they would be like, throw the chessboard across the room and make love on the chess table. Didn't happen. I wanted it to happen so much. Sophie and Gideon's child that was ruined. Eugenia is back in this book, and we don't get to see a lot of her, but what we do get to see is very Izzy-like. She seems like a badass, independent lady, and I hope we get to know her better. Matthew moves out of his parents' house in this book. It seems like it was a stipulation of living under Charlotte and Henry's roof that he stopped drinking or got help, and he didn't want to, so he got his own flat. threat. And it just feels very dangerous to have Matthew living by himself in such a troubled place at such a young age. I don't like it. Matthew visits Cordelia after her father's death. She's at her mom's house. He tells her that he knows that Cordelia is in love with James. And Matthew finally unloads this story about his mother and the truth potion and his unborn sibling. Cordelia is like, dude, except she doesn't say dude, but dude, you have to forgive yourself. You gotta tell your parents because they're gonna forgive you too. And he gives her permission to tell James if she needs to. And now that James isn't under the fog of the bracelet, hopefully he's gonna be able to help Matthew because he realizes that he hasn't been paying enough attention to Matthew and all the needs of his friends around him because he's been so focused on this stupid spell that's been fogging his brain. Anna and Ariadne's storyline threading through this book is heartbreaking. I love them together. I'm like on the same page as Ariadne. I'm like, come on, Anna's gonna come around, but Anna keeps saying these cutting things because she was so hurt the first time, and it's so upsetting every time she says something. I'm like, oh, Anna, stop being such an asshole! When Ariadne's like, are we not even friends? And Anna's like, did I not make that clear? Oh, Anna. While Matthew and Cordelia are on this road trip to fake Wayland the Smith, Grace comes to visit James, and again I'm like, oh my god, she's gonna set him free. And of course, she doesn't. The bracelet cracks when he kisses her because he's not thinking about her, he's thinking about Cordelia, and she leaves all upset. Then we get this night where we're all staying with James, and I knew it was coming. Like, Cordelia was gonna have to stay in James's room all night to make sure that he wasn't getting up and actually murdering people and being possessed. Cordelia's gonna have to stay with him, and we're gonna get the night. The bracelet's gonna break. It's gonna happen. Of course it doesn't. We almost get it. Again, Cassie chases us. Cordelia asks James to teach her about kissing. And James is like tied to the bed. It's very sexual. All the tension. There's so much of it. And they start making out. All their love bubbles are exploding because it's amazing, and James is completely into it. And then Cordelia's like, oh cool, that was a great tutorial. Thanks. That was really great. Like, sits back down with her sword. Maybe a couple more seconds and we could have broke the fucking bracelet then. Once we got to the halfway point and the bracelet wasn't broken, I was like, oh my god, it's not gonna break to the end. I'm gonna go insane. I'm gonna lose my mind. And I did. I lost my mind those last few chapters. I lost my fucking mind. I love that. While all the other merry thieves are downstairs on guard, Lucy reads from the beautiful Cordelia to entertain them, and Matthew's like, okay, let me get some whiskey and let's sit down and see what's up with these characters. So I mentioned the Pithos. They go to the shadow market to try to find out who might have sold this illegal Adamas. While we're there, a drunk Matthew finally confronts James about talking to Grace while he's with Cordelia. Oh, the scene was so good. I needed that. I needed someone to hammer some sense into James. I know Grace has power over him because that bracelet's still on his wrist, but like Matthew said, he shouldn't even let her in. Don't they have a peephole in their door? Why don't they have a peephole in the door? Why don't they ask who's there before opening the door? What a nuanced concept. I never open the door without asking who's there. Like, it's dangerous, James. You're a shadow hunter. Why wouldn't you ask who's outside before you open a door? Effie's never around to answer the door when it's Grace. She's never there. Where are their peepholes? When was the peephole invented? I don't know. Let's go back to this scene where fake Magnus, who's actually Lilith, takes James to Edom using dream magic, right? Belial has stolen this realm from Lilith, and he set up this gate so no one can just enter. There's a chessboard and there's a throne there. This doesn't really come back around yet, but the throne says, and he who overcomes, he who keeps my deeds until the end, to him I will give authority over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and I will give him the morning star. And I can't help but think, does this tie in any way back to the Morgensterns? We still haven't seen a Morgenstern, which is just so fishy. It's the fishiest, unless they're just in like Germany or something. We haven't seen them ever. We've seen like all the other Shadowhunter families show up. I still feel like there's something fishy there in the origin story of the Morgensterns. It might be important, it might just be something I'm pulling out of my ass. We move in to Act 3, giant intense fucking finale, which really starts with Anna and Ariadne stumbling across Leviathan being raised at the Institute. I couldn't help picturing Belial like in front of this whiteboard, mapping out his evil plan. I'm going to walk the earth. Plan A, Tessa has a son and we wait for him to get older so that I can convince him to let me possess him for the rest of eternity. Maybe that's never gonna happen. Tatiana Blackthorn has a son. Me like son, don't want to possess girl. Girl useless. Jesse's body's gonna need some runes. Where am I gonna get runes? I'm gonna murder a bunch of shadow hunters. How am I gonna get the runes off? We create a copy-paste stele. To copy-paste one rune from every shadow hunter I murder. I know what you're thinking. Why so many shadow hunters? Why go through all that trouble? Why don't I just copy-paste them all from one? Don't worry. It's coming. Wait for it. I'm gonna murder the shadow hunters to form a picture. Not just any picture, a picture on the map. I'm making my brother's sigil, not just to impress him when the last person is murdered. That sigil is gonna provide a gateway for my bro Leviathan, who owes me the favor to poke his ass up into this world. This time, with his help, there's no way James is gonna turn my offer of possessing him down. This is gonna work for sure. And everything goes as planned until Charles Fairchild doesn't actually die. So the gateway doesn't completely open, and the Leviathan battle is basically confined to the courtyard of the Institute. There's this really harrowing moment when Thomas runs outside with Alistair and Christopher, and they see Gabriel taken up by this giant tentacle covered in barbed wire. And for a second, I'm like, oh my god, please don't kill Gabriel. But Christopher's shout for his dad got me. We go back to the park with our trio. Matthew and Charles are frozen in time. Cordelia duels Jesse Blackthorn / Belial, and she holds her own. Like, he cannot win. And that's when Lillian Highsmith shows up, and she's like joining the party of guilt-tripping Cordelia. James goes over to her and is like, don't you talk to her that way. And I was like, thank you, James. Thank you. Like, what the fuck is going on with this ghost flaming Cordelia? And then Lillian Highsmith transforms into Magnus and the fairy and Waylon the Smith. Lilith wants revenge for Belial stealing Edom from her. She orders Cordelia to kill Belial. Belial is in Jesse Blackthorn's body. Lucy is racing to get there to make sure nothing happens to Jesse's body. Lucy almost kills Jesse herself when she realizes what's going on. She races to Chiswick House in the middle of the night and takes a sword and is about to plunge into Jesse's heart so he can't be possessed by Belial anymore. But she's knocked out by Grace. She gets there and she's in Cordelia's way. She's protecting Belial in Jesse's body. And Belial's just like, lol. Cordelia can't stop her limbs from trying to kill Belial. And Lilith orders her to kill Lucy if she gets in the way. And she's doing everything she possibly can, like feeling all this pain, trying to resist this order. I am so emo in this moment. Like, again, one of the best scenes in the book. I was on the cliff. I couldn't breathe listening to this. Then Lucy commands Jesse to expel Belial. He does. And Belial is like this smoke monster that can't be hurt in our realm. But James takes Cordelia and brings her into the Shadow Realm. She plunges Cortana into Belial, so now he has 2 wounds from Cortana that are bleeding. We only need 1 more to hopefully destroy him forever, but probably only destroy him for like 100 years. We'll see. We learn that Cortana is so deadly to Belial because inside is the feather of Michael, an archangel who Belial specifically cast down into the pit. So there's a vengeful feather up in there. Everything settles down really quickly after this whole, James shoots Lilith, Cordelia stabs Belial, Malcolm Fane shows up, he helps Charles Fairchild, Malcolm portals them all back to the Institute. Lucy and Malcolm take Jesse's body to the sanctuary, Grace meets them there, and they discuss meeting back up at midnight to go to Cornwall and bring Jesse back from the dead. James has to explain to the whole Shadowhunter community what happened. He leaves out all the stuff about Belial, he leaves out the stuff about Cordelia being a paladin to Lilith, but all of the Merry Thieves know about this, and they're all supporting Cordelia, and they're gonna help her get through it. That's a really touching moment where she's like, you still want to be friends with me? And they're like, obviously. James has to tell Magnus about the situation immediately. I love that little moment where Will is not in the carriage with Magnus and James, and Magnus is like, yeah, I know Matthew is in love with Cordelia. I know that you guys weren't just about to go on like a fun honeymoon trip together. You look like you just got your heart broken. And James is like, yeah. Last we saw Lucy, she's completely passed out. Lucy like accidentally tears Emmanuel Guest's ghost like into pieces. Don't know what that's about. I don't completely understand why Lucy can't command ghosts unless they ask her to. They all tell her like, you can't do that, you can't do that. And I don't know if it's just because it saps her energy, maybe it could kill her, or if there's like another consequence that we're not seeing yet that we don't completely understand. Oh my god, how long have I had ink on my nose? I love this Jessamine moment where she's like, at least her marriage is publicly recognized. When I married Nate, no one ever wanted to hear about it. Lucy is just sitting with a book and she's like, well, that's probably because he was a murderer, Jessamine. Jessamine ultimately is the one that tells Will and Tessa that Lucy has run off to do necromancy with Malcolm. Will bursts into action. This is all while James and Cordelia are having their hopefully re-proposal scene, and then there's a fucking knock at the door and it's Grace again. It's always Grace. James is tracking Cordelia to catch up to her, tell her he loves her. It's so important, but I couldn't say it. I couldn't just spit it out at any moment before now because it was just like not the right moment. James tracks them down in time at Waterloo. They're getting on the train he could have got on on it. But Will is also tracking James, and that's when Will finds James and is like, this is an emergency. We need your help. We need to go get Lucy. You gotta talk some sense into her. She doesn't listen to me like she listened to you. You know, she also doesn't listen to Will like she listened to Cordelia. Could have just brought them all. Like, this is an emergency. This is an emergency. This is an emergency. I just can't believe this. Why isn't Magnus just portaling them there? Can we just get there faster? Why are we taking a carriage? I cannot wait for book 3. I am so frustrated right now. Like, my last note is like, I am so angry at everyone right now. I want to like bop everyone upside the head. What were you thinking doing this? I guess Tessa's just gonna stay and watch the Institute. I'm really glad that at the end we got a little scene from Tessa and Will's point of view. Just got to check in on them. I love their study. I love Will watching Tessa read. I love him talking about her reading. I love him talking about books. I loved him like referencing Hamlet, pretending he didn't know what it was from, but I know Will knew what it was from. I'm so glad we got to go to a wedding that wasn't like the finale, but was the catalyst for the whole book. It was our first time really seeing a Shadow of Hunter wedding from the point of view of the people getting married. We usually see like as an audience member. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feelings. Let's vent. I haven't felt as like angry and mad at the end of one of Cassie's books. I don't think ever. Book 3 is gonna be a wild ride. A wild fucking ride, folks. We're getting more and more about these Princes of Hell, and it feels like we're really working up to like a weird Prince of Hell Avengers thing in the Wicked Power series that is to come. I mean, if you read The Lost Book of White, that's what the last chapter was alluding to. This Belial stuff, the Lilith stuff, it's really coming into play. I think we're getting the backstory that's gonna really funnel us up into the next series. I can't wait to see how like everyone ends up at the end and who has what kids, what's gonna funnel down. I hope there's a new family tree. I'm excited. I think that's all my thoughts, guys. My name's Christine. I'm at XTINEMAY on Twitter and Instagram. If you don't follow me there, I'd really appreciate it if you do so. I post videos as much as I can. I'm also an author. My first book is called A Game of Better. My new book is called Better Together. It comes out June 1st. They're both available in the description below if you're interested. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.